We hear it all the time, right? Be data-driven. But what about those moments when the data just isn't there or the clock has run out? Well, the best leaders, they have a kind of secret weapon. It's intuition, that gut feeling that guides the way when everything else is uncertain. But what is it, really? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and explore the actual cognitive architecture that powers it. And this quote, wow, it just hits the nail on the head. Think about it. The most important decisions, they're often made right there, in the moment, driven by something other than a perfect, complete data set. And that creates a fundamental tension for every single leader out there today. And here's that dilemma, laid out perfectly. On one side, you have this constant pressure. Be data-driven, use the numbers. But on the other side, you have reality, where you have to act fast, use your judgment, and a lot of the time, you just don't have all the information. So, how in the world do you balance those two? Which brings us right to the heart of our question for this explainer. If waiting for every last piece of data isn't always the answer, then what is that secret ingredient that lets people make quick, smart decisions? Well, as you've probably guessed, it's all about intuition. But to really get a handle on its power, we first have to redefine what we mean by intuition. We've got to move way beyond the idea that it's just some kind of mystical guesswork. This right here, this is the crucial shift in thinking. On the left, you see the myth that intuition is just a guess, random emotional impulse. But the reality, over on the right, is so much more scientific. It's actually your compressed expertise. It's your brain running this incredibly sophisticated subconscious pattern-matching engine, processing years of your experience in a flash. So let's put a real definition to it. As you can see here, intuition is your brain's amazing ability to quickly pull together all your past experiences, the wins, the losses, all of it, plus all the subtle signals from your current situation, and produce a decision without you having to consciously think through it step by step. It's a direct path from complexity to clarity. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. Leaders use this skill in very specific, high-stakes situations. You know the ones I'm talking about. When timelines are collapsing, when the data you do have is incomplete or, worse, telling you two different things, or when waiting for everyone to agree simply means you'll miss the boat. That's when intuition becomes absolutely critical. So, how does this actually work? How does your brain pull this off? Well, let's pop the hood on the intuitive mind and really explore the 4 cognitive layers that make this rapid-fire decision-making possible. Okay, here they are. The 4 layers working together. First, you've got the pattern recognition engine. Then, there are heuristics, which are essentially mental shortcuts. Third is emotional tagging, and finally, contextual compression. These 4 things fire together to create that single gut feeling. So let's break each one down. First up is the pattern recognition engine. Think of it like this. An experienced leader has built up a massive internal library of situations they've faced. Their brain is constantly scanning what's happening right now and comparing it to thousands of those past scenarios. And that is how they can often spot a problem long before it ever shows up in an official report. Next up, we have heuristics. The easiest way to think about these is as your brain's rules of thumb based on experience. Like the example here. When this team goes silent, issues usually follow. It's a mental shortcut that saves a ton of analytical time. The key, though, is to constantly check if your shortcuts are still valid, or if they've maybe turned into biases. The third layer is emotional tagging, and this is a really crucial distinction. This is not about making decisions because you're emotional. It's about how your brain uses the emotions tied to past outcomes, that sting of a failure or the thrill of a success, to tag current situations. These tags act like little caution signals that help direct your attention. It's emotion-informed prioritization. And finally, there's contextual compression. This is where your brain takes all these different complex signals, the time pressure, the mood of the team, the vague technical risks, and it compresses them all down into a single actionable gut feeling. This is exactly why a leader might say, I can't fully explain it, but this just doesn't feel right. I just love this analogy. It's so perfect. All 4 of those complex layers working together produce what is basically an executive summary written by your brain and delivered in milliseconds. It just cuts through all the noise. Okay, so we know what intuition is, but how does it work with the other side of the coin, hard data and analysis? Well, the key thing to remember is that it's not a competition, it's a partnership. And this slide really gets to the most important takeaway here. It is a false choice. The goal isn't to pick your gut over the data or the data over your gut.
The most effective leaders learn how to sequence them, creating this powerful loop where each way of thinking makes the other one stronger. So here's what that loop looks like in practice. Step 1. Your intuition acts like a funnel. It quickly narrows down a huge field of options to just a few promising ones. Step 2. You apply rigorous analysis, but only to those top paths. And then step 3, you bring intuition back in for a final check. Does the analytical solution still feel right? Does it align with the bigger picture? But let's be clear, intuition isn't a silver bullet. You should trust it most when these conditions are met. 1, you have deep experience in the area. 2, you're in a situation with repeating patterns. 3, the time pressure is real. And 4, the stakes demand a decisive call. If those things aren't there, you probably want to lean more heavily on analysis. Okay, this brings us to our final and maybe most important section. Intuition isn't just something you have or you don't. It is a skill you can train. So let's look at how to actually calibrate your inner compass. First, you have to know the traps. Our intuition can be fooled by all sorts of cognitive biases. There's overconfidence, where we just assume our gut is always right. Confirmation bias, where we only look for data that supports our initial feeling. Availability bias, where we give too much weight to the most recent thing that happened. And of course, when we let our ego get in the way of real reflection. Just being aware of these is the first step. So, here's your intuition workout plan. First, practice active reflection. After a big decision, ask yourself, what signals did I really act on? Second, try keeping a decision journal to spot patterns in your own thinking. Third, seek out diverse experiences and projects to broaden that mental library of yours. And finally, and this is the most crucial one, create feedback loops. Systematically check in to see if your intuitive calls were right or wrong, and more importantly, why. Because really, the whole goal is to move from a blind, raw instinct to a finely calibrated judgment. You start with that messy gut feeling, and through conscious effort, reflection, journaling, feedback, you slowly turn it into a tool that is both incredibly sharp and precise. So we'll end on this thought, which is really a challenge for all of us. The question isn't whether you use intuition. You already do, every single day. The real question is, are you actively working to understand it, to calibrate it, and to sharpen it into your most powerful leadership tool? Thanks for joining us.